Okay, well, welcome everyone. Good morning. I'd like to go ahead and kick things off here. Thank you so much for joining the SoftCo webinar today. My name is Bill Constantakis. I'm a senior sales consultant here at SoftCo. I've been working in the AP automation space for close to 20 years. I have on the line with me, I'm joined by my colleague, Jason Hery. Jason, you want to just introduce yourself briefly?
Yeah, thanks, Bill. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jason Hery. I'm on the pre-sales team here at SoftCo. I'll be conducting a short demo as part of our webinar this morning. I'm based down in New Orleans, and I've been with the company here a little over a year. Been in the AP automation space for about 15 years. So nice to see everyone.
Great, thanks, Jason. I'm just going to go ahead and turn on my camera just for a brief moment. Say hello, put a name to the face. Again, thanks everyone for joining us today in the SoftCo webinar, part of our monthly webinar series that we try and put on for folks who are interested in learning more about AP automation and specifically about the SoftCo solutions. And what we're going to be focusing in on today, the topic is why you need AP automation in 2024. So what we'll do is we're going to go for about 35 minutes or so, walk through a number of slides that we've pulled information and incorporated in that we think are relevant for those who are considering AP automation in the coming year. We'll also dive into a brief demonstration of our AP automation solution. By no means it'll be a comprehensive demo, but it will give you some insight in a general sense of the application's capabilities and functions. If anyone is interested after the session today and taking a deeper dive into SoftCo, into our application, we're happy to do so, and we'll follow up accordingly. Just a little housekeeping, if you do have any questions along the way, please enter them into the chat or the question function on the GoToWebinar tile screen. And we'll get to those questions either during the course of the demonstration, or if it makes sense, maybe hold off and we'll answer those, but we will address them all by the end of the presentation today. Okay, so with that, I'm going to go ahead and shut my screen back off and allow us to focus in on some of the presentation now. Get my screen. So I'm going to go ahead and just review a couple things. Again, our topic today, the future of finance, why you need AP automation for 2024. And just going to spend a couple of minutes to set the stage in terms of the higher level benefits of AP automation. And we could probably think about, some of these things may sound familiar to you at this point, but just kind of wanted to go through items such as quicker approval of invoices. When you think about AP automation, looking at employee productivity gains, providing remote capabilities, looking at overall reduction in manual paper invoice processing, and ultimately lowering overall AP processing costs. And these are just responses that were gathered by Level Research in their payables insight reports when they went out and they interviewed CFOs and senior finance professionals within various organizations that have implemented some sort of AP automation solution. So really no surprises here. So when implementing a AP automation solution, there's obviously a financial benefit that everyone is ultimately seeking. So what we're looking at here highlights that point and is through data collected by the IOFM, where they've conducted research and built out estimates where they have found typically in a manual environment that the cost to process a single supplier invoice, and that's taken into account the number of touch points. So the time it takes to get an invoice manually keyed into the system, routed for approval, coded, and if needed, eventually matched to a purchase order or goods receipt, you're looking at approximately $16 for a single invoice processed for the organization. For those that have implemented some level of AP automation, they can get that cost usually down to just under $7 an invoice. And that's based on having some kind of efficiencies, such as a data capture or OCR tool maybe some kind of simple workflow tool for routing the invoices around for approvals. And they've been able to gain from organizations, but they've found that you can typically reduce that by only about 25 to 30% processing rates. So the invoice is touched a lower percentage. Incremental improvements are made, but still get you down to about $7 per invoice there. Greater benefits can be seen above and beyond when a system like a SoftCo comes in and what we're looking to do. And that is to enable the highest levels of automation. So we'll take a look at straight-through processing, which will be a common theme we'll hear throughout the course of the presentation today. And with straight-through processing, you're typically able to see 85% increase in efficiencies. So what we're striving for in terms of the financial benefits, then we're looking at an ROI analysis and in terms of building business case and saving them in approximately $14 per invoice. And then you really start to multiply that out versus the invoice volume that you are processing on an annual basis. And you can see you can stack up to a pretty significant savings. So just for an example, an organization is averaging 50,000 invoices per year. That's a savings over $700,000. And so you can start to see where there are opportunities to see hard dollar cost savings and introducing automation in AP, which can really lead to building a solid business case for implementing a solution. And now that you have higher level of straight-through processing, which I talk about as really true automation, your team then moves from doing manual tasks and now can focus on high-end priorities like capturing prompt payment discounts, decreasing the tolerance that is acceptable for price and quantity variances, and so forth. So why automation now? Let's jump into the next screen here, and Jason, we're going to go through, cover off several bullet points here. I'll probably ask for your commentary as we move along. As you're dealing with customers and prospects on a daily basis, we'll just pull you in as we move along just for some additional insight. So just to add some context, dating back, when you think about just times of uncertainty for the last couple of years, really dating back to the pandemic, we continue to deal with some other uncertain times even today, whether it's economic outlook, inflation, high interest rates. There's always some sort of uncertainty out there in a marketplace, and really depending on your industry, depending on your line of business and how your individual organization is set up for future investment, these times of uncertainty could be looked at as either opportunistic times to invest and grow in the market, or you may have the other side where you're a little pessimistic on your viewpoint. And this could be a time maybe where you're looking to retract and tighten the belt a little bit. And looking at solutions like AP automation as a way to gain greater control into your overall spend through automating less efficient manual processes and having better visibility into companies' cash flow, less time to manual tasks and more time to strategically evaluate vendor relationships and contract terms. The companies can simultaneously position themselves for future growth when things start to come back around, because you now have flexibility to manage additional volumes without having to add any additional workforce because you have automation now in your back office. I think, Jason, maybe you've seen a couple recent situations that may be relevant.
Yeah, absolutely. I can think of, off the top of my head, I can think of two kind of valid situations here. So one of which is we have a customer that is a kind of a healthcare provider or a vitamin provider. So they deal with all types of things when it comes to your health. Obviously, the pandemic, nobody wants to think about that. But if we're talking about times of uncertainty, that for them was a time of massive growth and obviously semi-unexpected. So their company grew dramatically during that time, and with the use of AP automation, with a system in place that they were able to just start growing and scaling and not having to hire additional people in order to deal with that additional invoice volume that was coming into their AP team, was a real benefit to them. On the flip side of that, kind of the unfortunate side, if you will, during that same time period, obviously airports and such were a big problem. So people weren't traveling, airports were shut down, flights were canceled, et cetera, et cetera. Well, one of our customers manages restaurants and other locations in airports throughout the country. They were able to kind of draw back. They were able to really get some insight into exactly where every dollar was being spent, kind of shrink the team as necessary while still managing that AP influx, that AP invoice volume, and making sure that they knew exactly where every dollar was being spent. So kind of two examples there of the good times and the bad times, if you will, but overall being able to adjust as necessary in times of uncertainty is certainly a large benefit of AP automation.
Thanks, Jason. For the next point, hybrid workplaces, something, again, that's commonplace today. If you think about maybe 3-4 years ago, it's hard to imagine the shift we've seen taking place in terms of how and where people are working. As you can see in the statistic that we have up on the right-hand side here, 48% we're showing here, indicating that over the next couple of years, nearly half the total U.S. workforce will be mobile or hybrid, which is, when you think about it, doesn't sound like much of a surprise based where we are on today. Obviously, with the surge of people operating outside the office, either we're working remotely from home or in shared workspaces, it's kind of driven us into a situation where organizations had to be in a position where they could support those remote workplaces. And for some organizations who weren't prepared when people were forced to work outside the office a couple of years ago during the pandemic, presented them with challenges, especially if they were still dealing with a manual AP environment, having a lot of people invoices being mailed, and you'd have to go to have somebody in the office just to get the mail, manually enter or scan the documents in to kick off a process. So lots of companies did not have access to their systems outside the office. This created a challenge, became something that had to be addressed very quickly. And so having AP automation solutions, SaaS-based solutions, making it accessible to them. So with the hybrid workplaces, having vendors send invoices via email and have basic capture functionality on the front end to reduce keystrokes, but that tended to be more of a Band-Aid type to just digitize the systems, where we'll focus more today, and where we're seeing a lot of our clients is a desire now to truly provide real automation. Jason, I know you might have some examples here of some companies that are coping with a hybrid environment.
Yeah, I think the main thing to mention here, to me, it's a big one, is the idea of people wanting to be hybrid. So wanting the ability to work from home, wanting the ability to get up early and start their day at 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning because they have some sort of family, something at school with the kids or whatever it might be. So they're going to be out for 2 hours in the middle of the day, and they're not limited to specific office hours or specific office locations, if you will. So the ability to support that workforce kind of any way, shape, or form is huge. Obviously, a hosted environment similar to what SoftCo can offer is a big situation. Another that comes to mind for me personally is when you're dealing with an evacuation or a disaster recovery type situation. Down here in New Orleans, we obviously deal with hurricanes and such unfortunately on a fairly regular basis. So being able to work from a remote location and wherever you kind of land, and having the ability to continue to get your work done, and without your task being either pushed off on other people or falling by the wayside or whatever it might be, is, for me personally, a huge benefit of a hosted type solution like this. So yeah, it's something I can certainly get on board with.
Yeah, it's also interesting is we're seeing it almost as a competitive advantage now as well, as we're seeing more and more in job postings. You'll notice for accounting or accounts payable positions, they're now promoting the fact that they have these systems in place. It makes it attractive to the talent to have that capability to work in a hybrid environment, especially with a younger workforce, and the ability to attract and retain them is extremely important. So having that flexibility in a hybrid environment, but also keeping pace with technology in a competitive marketplace. Next up is reducing the reliance on manual processes. And now we've talked a few minutes ago about the difference between just digitizing, getting things in electronic format, moving away from pushing paper documents around, and now understanding a little bit more about true automation, how with people working outside the office, many organizations were forced to digitize. And so an example, again, would be where AP departments are receiving paper invoices previously. They were in the office, they could receive the paper, maybe scan it in, pass it around to somebody's desk for signature, manually get that approval. And when they were outside the office, maybe they turned that into a PDF document and saving it to a network drive and then having it emailed for approvals. So there's still a difference between automation and just getting digitized documents. There's a lot of manual touch points there, and anytime that we have manual or human touch points, there are challenges that can impact an organization. Number one, it can be time consuming to get the invoices approved. Maybe that causes paying late fee penalties or dealing with credit holds or any type of issues you may have with a key supplier that you're trying to avoid. Or maybe you're missing the potential early payment discounts. There's also the potential for human error on the front end when you're dealing with bad data. It just magnifies rework on the back end. Also can open up the potential for fraud and concerns around compliance if you don't have a well-documented and automated process in place. In terms of lowering processing costs, so we talked about lowering those costs already and how it plays a critical role for any ROI or business case analysis that's done, and discuss the difference between simple digitization, again, true automation for lowering those hard dollar AP processing costs. And I think, Jason, an interesting thing here is that we've started to see lowering costs is one area of the business, and some of our customers are using that maybe to offset rising costs in other parts of the business. Things like raw materials or the uptick in terms of types of surcharges that we're seeing on invoices. That could be shipping, freight costs across the board. So being able to use those cost savings help offset costs in other parts of the business is something that's important for us as well. Jason, if you had anything to add there.
Yeah, I agree completely with the rising cost of raw materials and such in the manufacturing space. We're seeing this a bunch. Have a bunch of companies and customers in that space, and it's certainly something that I know they're encountering. The rising cost of raw materials, additional freight, surcharges that are showing up on their invoices, the ability to track that data and actually feed that back into the business so that something can be done with it. Whether that's, we have customers that are actually taking that surcharge type information, feeding that back to the vendors themselves, and more or less using that to renegotiate their contracts and say things such as, hey, enough with the surcharge information, enough with the COVID surcharges. We're all dealing with it. Get rid of it. Enough's enough. So tracking that data, really being able to see exactly how much money is being spent on these types of things, and then using that as a benefit to the business is definitely something we're seeing a lot of.
Yeah, it's an area we spent a lot of time and resources in developing into our solution, and we do this based on customer feedback. So we do get a lot of valuable information from our current clientele who are literally seeing these things on a daily basis, feed it back into our R&D team, and we build it into the solution. So how we handle those surcharges and offering a more automated process, that's something we're happy to talk to at a later time as well, if you guys are interested in seeing a more thorough demonstration at a later time. Lastly, on here is just keeping pace with the competition. Now we've touched on earlier, if you look out over the last, say, 10, 15 years, we've heard from C-level executives, they're talking a lot about modernization and digital transformation. And AP automation is often will fall under this organizational strategy for adoption and implementation of a digital technology. Had a recent customer that is going through a large digital transformation, ERP migration, but AP automation was a key part of that process as well. And they needed to have that implemented before they made the move on the ERP. So we are seeing it more and more coming up as an important part of their overall transformation strategies. From another angle, when looking at competition not only in the market, but when thinking about competition in the workplace and your ability to, again, attract and retain the best type of talent. Our customers not only want to support their employees' ability to work remotely, but also afford them the opportunity to work in a modernized technology environment, keeping their skill sets updated so they remain competitive and contribute in more strategic and analytical roles versus doing repetitive tasks that can be done by AI, machine learning, for example. They look at it as an investment in human capital and a strategy that potentially gives you a leg up on the competition. So Jason, I don't know if you have anything to add to this last one.
Yeah, I think something we've seen a lot of recently is this whole ROI calculation process that a lot of our customers have been using. We provide them with a with an ROI calculator in some capacity so that they can understand exactly what that's going to look like in their business. But recently we had a customer that we provided them the ROI information, ROI calculator, and we try to be as cautious as possible in that process so that we don't kind of overshoot, if you will. We passed that on to them. They came back to us and more or less tripled what we had calculated ourselves. So they came back to us and estimated that they were going to save somewhere in the neighborhood of $300,000 over the course of 2 years with the implementation of AP automation. So when you talk about keeping pace with the competition, when you talk about visibility, and when you talk about the ability to really understand and see where all of the costs are going from an AP standpoint, it certainly gives customers kind of a leg up, if you will, when it comes to keeping pace with the competition.
Great. Okay, now we're going to get into the demonstration portion of our presentation. Jason, I was going to go ahead and share the screen with you.
Yep. Let me share my slide here. Okay. Okay. Let's see. 1 second here. All right, Bill, if you could confirm you can see that.
Yes, you're good.
Excellent. Thank you. All right, going to do 2 things here. Going to talk you guys through what we see as the standard kind of AP automation process and kind of where we fit into that. And then we're going to jump into the solution for a quick overview type demo. So working our way from left to right here, kind of step 1 in the process, if you will, is invoice capture. So this is the ingestion point, the point at which your invoices will enter your environment. Most everything is going to enter your environment via email. So we will monitor an email box. We will extract the invoices from those emails. Predominantly it's PDFs, but we can support other formats. We'll read those invoices and extract the applicable data off of those invoices, the standard values that you're dealing with today. So invoice date, invoice number, line item information, amount information, stuff like that, in order to get that invoice passed on to step 2 so that we can actually do the matching and the automation piece. So step 2, we're going to do a few things here. We're going to feed your ERP data into our smart matching engine. That will include kind of your standard invoice type data, PO data, receipt information, and of course your master data. Feed that in to our smart matching engine. With that, we are going to match against the data that's coming from capture. We're going to do PO matching, kind of 3 types of matching, if you will. Not limited to that, but for the sake of this conversation, PO matching, so PO invoices will match against purchase orders, and with any luck, get an auto match and pass that on over to the ERP. In the case of an exception, that will be passed over to a queue so that someone can deal with. That could be assigned to someone, that can be passed out to the business for review, whatever it might be. Most of that can be automated. On a recurring invoice standpoint, these are things like rent and utilities. We can deal with those and automate most of those for you. Those will traditionally be non-PO invoices, and we can have what we refer to as contract matching. We create a supporting document behind that invoice so that you actually have something to match against, even though it's non-PO. On the non-traditional non-PO side, we're going to do a few things. We can automatically code and automatically route documents for approval. If we can't do it automatically for whatever reason, if we don't know exactly what to expect for a certain vendor or a certain situation, you can, of course, and you will, of course, code those and deal with those in some manual fashion. Once the system understands how you are dealing with these, it will start to learn and remember. So that's where smart coding and smart routing comes into play here. On an overarching technology, on both sides of the solution, if you will, on PO side or non-PO side, we have machine learning. So that machine learning on the PO matching side is going to start to remember how your PO invoices are matching on a vendor by vendor basis and really understand what the matching should look like in a certain scenario. On the non-PO side, it's going to start remembering and automatically populating the coding screens and the routing screens based on what you've done in the past. So as invoices come in and the similar items are on those invoices or similar situations present themselves, the system will be able to automatically code those things and send those things out for approval. Once, of course, we deal with any exceptions, we're going to post that over to the ERP. On the back end of our solution, we're going to store everything in a compliant archive for really as long as you need, 7 years, 10 years, whatever it might look like. We'll take care of that for you. Of course, with anything that gets stored there, any and all information is stored with it. So when was it received? How was it received? Who approved it? Who coded it? Did it match to a PO? Did it not? Et cetera, et cetera. All the login information is going to be stored with that. And then, of course, we can also help you with payment automation. Won't get into that today, but it is something we offer to our customers. Okay, jumping into the solution now. We are logged in as a standard user here, kind of a general AP user, if you will. When this user logs in, they're going to be dropped into what we refer to as the operations dashboard. Excuse me. Sorry about that. From the operations dashboard, they're going to see a general overview of the solution. How many invoices are in the system? And then where do those invoices stand in the AP process? Are they in data capture? Are they awaiting matching? And so on and so forth. In the bottom left, invoices by due date. How many invoices do we have coming up in the next few days or few weeks? Over on the right, we're going to present any discount opportunities that you might have coming up so that those don't expire and you can actually take advantage of those. Over on the finance dashboard, this is going to be more around amounts, if you will. So we're going to present you with the value of invoices that are coming up in the next few days or week, as opposed to the number of invoices in the previous screen. I'm going to present your top suppliers so that we can make sure we keep those relationships in check, and especially like in the manufacturing space, that you do not have a situation where manufacturing is delayed because we forgot to pay an invoice or something like that. And then, of course, if you're dealing with multiple currencies, we're going to break out your currency cash flow, or your cash flow by currency, I should say. So a lot of insight here in these dashboards. Analytics, I'm not going to touch on this today, but analytics, just know we offer an advanced analytics function that has a lot more data that is available. I'll jump over to AP automation. I'm not going to touch on the capture step today. If you guys want to see that, we're happy to show you that at a later time. But just know the capture step is first, passes it on to this AP automation step. So a few things to call out here about the interface. Top left is your favorites, so the ability to kind of tweak and only view what you want to see as opposed to all invoices in the system. Bottom left is kind of your working section, so it gives you the ability to monitor the system, run a bunch of canned reports, maybe some AP tasks, a lot of different things you can do down here. All right, we're going to start in the PO invoices received today that have been automatically processed. First thing to call out in our notification column here is next to each one of these values, you see a percentage. That percentage is what we refer to as our confidence match or confidence score. This is the system's ability to present to you visually how confident it is that this is in fact a match against a purchase order. So these are all PO invoices. So in this case, 100% confident. In this case, 75% confident. These results and these percentages are going to produce slightly different results. So let me show you what that looks like. Start with the perfect scenario, which of course we all know is not always the case, but the data comes in on the left-hand side. We have the invoice header information. In the middle, we have the image. And then of course at the bottom, we have the invoice rows. If I jump over to the matching tab, we're going to be presented with 3 pretty critical pieces of information as far as invoice processing goes. Invoice details on the left, PO details on the right, and our matching result or our matching details in the middle. We put our mouse on one of these lines, we're going to see how that line specifically matched. In this case, order number all the way through total amount for that specific line has matched, and this would be, as we said, 100% match. If I click on my coding tab, we'll notice that the coding has in fact carried over from the purchase order, and this invoice would be ready to post over to the ERP. In this case, in a production environment, these types of invoices, these types of scenarios would just process straight on through. They would not stop here for review unless there was some business reason to do so. Bouncing back to the queue, 85% result. So this is going to be probably a very similar scenario, or a very common scenario that you've seen in your own business, unit of measure mismatch. So we have ordered, say, 12 of something, and the vendor has invoiced us for one box or one case. So in that case, obviously your unit price and generally your quantity are off. So we see here we have a slightly different result. We have a situation where order number, product code, and amount are good to go, but our quantity and unit price are in fact off. If we look a little further on the first line, quantity of 20, unit price 360. Over on the PO, quantity of 200, unit price of 36. So standard unit of measure mismatch, we don't want you guys having to touch these. So in most cases in production for our customers, these are not being touched. These are being processed automatically. They do not have to be processed automatically. I don't want you to think that we're going to force that down your throat. We're not. This is going to be fit for your business. If this is a good fit as far as automatically processing these, we're happy to do that for you. And that way you don't have to deal with these types of simple mismatches. Of course, our coding carries over and we would be ready to process this on through. Again, automatically processed. So let me bounce over now, excuse me, bounce over to PO invoices that require some AP action. So that's kind of our automated set. Oh, let me show you one more. If you guys receive invoices that have multiple purchase orders on a single invoice, that's what this would look like here. Go over to matching. We see that we're able to match against multiple invoices. In this case, it's only one line, multiple purchase orders per invoice. We see it's only one line per PO in this case, but we're able to match each section here is in fact a different purchase order. All right, jump back and we're going to go to our PO invoices that require some AP action. So I'll show you a couple of discrepancy type scenarios. In this case, we have a pricing issue. So we're able to call out that pricing issue for you very specifically. We're also going to alert you to exactly what would have been acceptable. So here we're saying 58 to 59 would have been acceptable, but 61 is in fact out of tolerance and needs to be dealt with. So we see the other lines have matched perfect, and this line here only has a 76% match. Jump over to coding. We see all of our coding has carried over and we would be ready to send this for approval. So if we click on approval here, we're able to route this out to someone. I'll just go ahead and populate this manually. This does not have to be done manually. It can be done via a model. It can be done via smart routing, but regardless, for the sake of this conversation, I'll do it manually. Send it out to Aaron for approval. The next screen is going to populate the details of the exception at hand so that Aaron knows exactly why he's being sent this. I can also populate this guy and let him know some further details if I want to do that. Say okay, and then Aaron is going to receive an email. I'll show you that email here in just a minute. That's one exception. I'll show you one more exception here. When a pricing exception with multiple purchase orders on a single invoice. So here we see many different lines, many different purchase orders, and we're able to call out where the problem is for that one specific line on that one specific invoice and PO relationship. The other POs, the other lines have all matched successfully, but we have this one issue. Same thing applies here. Our coding carries over, whatever the coding might look like, and we're able to send that for approval just like we did on the previous screen. All right, jumping over to invoices that have been assigned to business users. Most of the time, this is automatically assigned. These are sent out automatically. We're able to see from this queue who has the invoice and why they have the invoice. Once they are assigned these documents, they will receive an email similar to what I was just talking about with that previous email. So let me show you that. We have here an example of a user that has been assigned an invoice. They're able to approve directly from their email. They do not have to log into the system. They can, of course, if they would like to, by clicking on this link, but no need to actually log in unless they really want to. They can also open this and see the invoice in more detail if that's something they need to do. So if Aaron's happy to approve this, and simply click on approve, that's going to load a screen, pass on that approval, and we're going to see here in just a second that that approval has been successful. So routing successful, route type approve. So that would be approved, and Aaron or the AP team would have no further action to take. Okay, and moving on to, excuse me, the non-PO side to do some coding of a non-PO invoice. So I'll show you this quickly. Non-PO invoice, notice we don't have a matching tab here. Coding, I'm able to code this manually if I need to. I can break this out to as many lines as I need. So if I need to break this 860 out 10 different times, that's completely fine. Generally, what you're going to end up doing in a production environment is as the system learns what you've done, you're able to use smart coding. So if I select smart code, system's going to go out and search past invoices. In this case, it found 6. And most of them have been coded, whoops, sorry about that. Most of them have been coded the way it is suggesting here on the screen. If we're happy with that, we can save that. We can say send for approval. Smart routing, very similar functionality as smart coding. We'll select smart route. Same thing applies here. It searches for past invoices, and it's going to populate based on what those past invoices have done. So we're able to send that out to Chad and to Rob so that they can go ahead and verify, and then Rob approve the document. So I'll just say okay to that. Okay, so that's a quick overview of the system. Don't want to run too long. I know we try and keep this to about 45 minutes, so I think we are good to go there. Let me jump back into, actually, Bill, can you, I'm going to stop sharing here. Can you share your screen? I wanted to talk about a couple of things on the, let me stop sharing. Perfect. Talk about a couple of things on that next slide.
Let's move up. Hold on one second.
Can you
see it?
Screen here. Yeah, there we go. Sorry. Okay. All right. So just to kind of finish this thought, a couple things to mention as far as benefits overall. I think the two things are real-time data insights. So the ability to really see what's going on with all of your invoices that are coming into, and then of course, eventually moving out of your system. Are they paid? Were they paid on time, et cetera, et cetera. And then over on the bottom right-hand corner, achieve compliance obligations. So the ability to store the invoices long-term with all the details around those invoices from an approval and coding standpoint, so that during an audit type situation, you can produce that information quickly. There's no guesswork, you know exactly where it's at, and it's able to be provided to the auditors as necessary. Okay, I think that covers the demo piece. Again, we're happy to get in more detail and get a little deeper into this if that's something you guys are interested in. I think it's back to you, Bill.
All right, thank you very much, Jason, for walking through that demo there. And as Jason said, we'll try and keep this to about 45 minutes. So I'm just going to spend a couple of minutes and provide a brief overview of SoftCo before we wrap things up. So SoftCo has been around for a little over 30 years, developing software solutions to help automate financial processes around procure-to-pay solutions. And that includes AP automation, where our focus has been on today. We also have solutions for e-procurement for raising purchase orders and approval routing of indirect goods. We also have a vendor management piece for onboarding new suppliers, as well as offering a supplier portal as part of that, where vendors have 24/7 access to log in, check status of orders and invoices and so forth. We also have a white glove service around payments automation. In terms of integration, we integrate with all major ERP and accounting systems, including the big ones, SAP, Oracle, Microsoft, for example. In addition, we have experience with upwards of 200 other ERP systems to date that we have done an integration with. And we're pretty flexible in terms of how we offer methods in which to do so. It could be through an API, web services, flat files. That's usually pretty flexible when we're working with our our clients and what they want to do as far as passing the data back and forth. We've had a lot of success working with many different partners as well. SoftCo is a SaaS solution, as we mentioned, so it's built for the cloud. We have some flexibility in terms of where that's hosted, whether it's AWS or Microsoft Azure. We also have some pre-built certified integrations with Microsoft ERP systems, as well as Sage. And we partner with Corpay, which is one of the largest payment supplier networks in North America for our payment component of the P2P suite. Just a couple of highlights we feel kind of differentiate us in the industry. First, we have over 1 million users of the system across the globe that are currently using the solution. Experience and success in the industry for many years. Last year, we had over $25 billion processed through the SoftCo 10 platform. And I'll point out in the top middle box, SoftCo is enabling the highest levels of automation. Again, going back to the term of straight through processing. So those invoices that are received, they're ingested into the system, capturing all header, line level detail, and then automatically matching to a purchase order and goods receipt, as Jason showed you, and then posting to the ERP system. And again, we have customers who are realizing upwards of 90% straight through processing rates, which just drives an incredible efficiency gain and ensures that you're getting the most value out of your investment. And that takes us to SoftCo, just leads the industry in terms of customer satisfaction. EY did a study last year where they went out to organizations that utilize AP automation solutions just to measure their satisfaction across the customer base. And they used that to create a NPS, or a Net Promoter Score, which is one measure of that. And SoftCo led the way with an NPS score of 80, which is an impressive score, something we're particularly proud of. And that kind of leads to the fact that we have over 100%, or not over 100%, we are at 100% customer references. So, and that kind of falls in line with no failed projects among our customer base. And really a big reason for that is our focus on customer success. We implement all of our solutions utilizing SoftCo resources. We also support all of our customers with SoftCo resources. So at no point do we outsource any of this. And we also have dedicated customer success managers who are there with you, making sure that our clients are seeing the value of the solution and continually working with them to optimize the solution and drive towards that 90% straight through processing rate to enable the highest levels of automation. So when we think about reasons why folks select SoftCo as their system of choice, again, one reason is our ability to offer not only AP automation, but a full suite of procure to pay. It's a modular solution, so you can start where you want. A lot of companies will start kind of the low-hanging fruit in AP automation, and then from there you're able to add on for e-procurement or payments. It's not a one-size-fits-all mentality, so you're paying for only what you're using out of the solution set. And then in terms of the straight-through processing, we invest heavily in our research and development to make sure our straight-through processing is a key differentiator in the marketplace. Customer satisfaction, we just touched on the NPS score. Security, we'll touch briefly on that. In terms of security, SoftCo has a multi-instance platform that uses a virtual private cloud for each customer. So we can securely house dedicated databases and application configurations. Really what that means to you, it guarantees that customers' data is secure and is not commingled with other customer data. So customers also can choose when they want to update and deploy to their environment when it best suits their business needs and compliance requirements. So meaning there's no unexpected downtime for you. We're also SOC 1 and SOC 2 audited as an organization. And then, as we mentioned, customers 100% referenceable across the board. Some of those customers, just to kind of give you a sample of our diverse customer base, they are kind of diverse in industry and geography, as well as the size of organizations. For example, in manufacturing, companies such as Logitech, Snap-on, analog devices. We also have a good portion in retail, companies likes of Primark, Patagonia, and a recent new customer, David Yurman, as well as in the food and beverage industry, financial services, and several others. And within those industries, there's a good representation, I'd say, that the size of customers. So on the low end, we may have customers that are processing 15 to 20,000 invoices per year through the system. And on the high end, we have a customer that's processing over 2 million invoices, which speaks just to the scalability of the solution. So organizations can feel confident if they start with SoftCo and they're anticipating invoice volume growth, whether through organic growth or through acquisition in the future, they have a solution that's going to be able to scale to their business. Just touch on the NPS one more time. It kind of ties into the EY report. You can see here where our score stacks up against some of our competitors in the industry. So the scores on the right, and some of the competitors' names withdrawn, but SoftCo scores at an 80. Again, something that we're particularly proud of in terms of that. And then finally, just a couple of case studies. I won't go through all these. You can kind of review briefly. I just wanted to demonstrate some of those there. And then just to mention, we'll follow up as a course of action, as we talked about earlier. If you're interested in seeing a deeper dive demonstration of the solution, I'm more than happy to sit with you, understand your particular business process in more detail, and put together a more comprehensive demonstration of our solution. We offer one thing, it's called a smart matching challenge, and that's where we take real life examples of your purchase orders and your invoices, and we'll process them through our AP solution. And with you, and you'll be able to get a better sense of just exactly what your specific straight through processing would look like. So get a good idea of what those rates would be. And we've had a lot of success doing that recently with prospects where they've seen the processing first time run throughs, where they're seeing potential straight through processing rates, 70-75% just first time run with their sample data that they give to us, not in a canned environment, but rather real life examples. We're happy to engage and talk about scheduling those for potential prospects and you folks as well. So again, we'll follow up, and just want to thank you for your time, spending part of your day with us, and that wraps things up from our side. So thank you again, and I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. And just looking to see if there are any questions. Lastly, I don't see any here in the chat line. So if you do have any, we'll be following up again, and we can address those at that time. So thank you once again.